As Rocket League approaches its 7 year in existence, there's been a lot of conversation lately about the rise and decline of the game in general. A lot of content creators and people in mind, myself included, feel that a lot of the saving grace is going to be involved with Unreal Engine 5, the capability to hopefully make more maps, more unique things to keep the game enticing. And we've seen that with Knockout Bash recently and a bunch of different new game modes, and what Rocket Labs has implemented between like a corridor map and a bunch of other things. There's been a lot of really good arguments for that. On the other side of things, there's also some people out there that feel like the core gameplay itself needs to be updated. The concept that we saw the addition of the Neo Tokyo update that applied flip resets, the capability to use stuff like directional air roll rather than a straight air roll, which then kind of unlocked the potential for some of the players. And those evolutions in the meta or in the gameplay itself is what is keeping Rocket League alive. Now, this whole concept is kind of a difficult one to have because of the way that Rocket League is presented. The capability of Psyonix treating the game as a traditional sport and making sure that the parameters are the exact same. Same standard map, same cars, no unique hitboxes, etc. So trying to standardize everything has been the core mentality, and there's a lot of debate that's going around with this. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, content creator Caleb Striped Cousins on his Twitter at StripeGG ended up having this to say, and you should be seeing full screen a tweet. Hear me out. I think the fact that Rocket League's core gameplay never changes actually hurts the game. The meta can barely evolve, new mechanics cease to exist, and matches get repetitive. Every new season should have changes to the actual gameplay to keep players interested. Best example of this was when Psyonix added flip resets through their Neo Tokyo update. This was unintended, but a whole new mechanic was invented with endless possibilities even at the top level. It became a new meta, and no one complained. There's a bunch of subsequent tweets to this as well, and I figured that while this was a conversation and a lot of flack was received for it, Twitter isn't always the best place to provide an argument. So I decided to invite Caleb to a conversation to sit down and chat about this topic. A lot of the times I'm going to be playing devil's advocate and trying to provide counter to what he has to say, but I also think this is a really good conversation piece. So before we get into the interview, let me know how you guys feel about it. Are you on the side of changing the core gameplay of Rocket League, or do you have other ideas like some of us as content creators that have felt, different maps, different game modes, or something to that extent? Let me know in your comments down below, and hopefully we can do some follow-up in the future. But with that said, enjoy the interview. Now, you guys heard me present the argument, and I figured what better way to do it than bring in Caleb Striped Cousins in general. Obviously, this has kind of gone a little bit differently, or maybe this is what you expected. Either way, I do think the conversation is important. But before we get into all of that, obviously, if you would like to introduce yourself, tell the people who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive right in.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So I don't know if you guys know me, but my name is Caleb, or you probably know me more as Striped, and I basically make Rocket League content. So I've had a YouTube channel for the past almost 2 years now. Actually, I just realized that, so quite a long time. And I have been a fan, player, and esports watcher since this game came out. So that's like 2015. I started like right as the game came out, and have been grinding this game ever since. So I love the game. I speak from a place of passion, and I care about the players. But as a content creator, I also care about engaging people and keeping them excited about the game and wanting to be more invested in Rocket League. So I think that really fueled this conversation. And yeah, that's really where I'm coming from.
So I showcased the tweet and stuff in our introduction, kind of briefly brought it up and proposed both arguments, talked about, hey, a lot of content creators believe in the evolution of Unreal Engine 5 and hopefully getting a creative mode and unique maps and basically making Lethemir really sad because none of the stuff from Unreal Engine 3 is going to transfer over, so he's going to have to redo everything. But yeah, a lot of that stuff. And then there's also people that present the side of, the gameplay itself. How can we change and add the stuff like air rolls, flip resets, the evolution of the meta that we see through the players kind of pushing that evolution. But sometimes direct updates also have to have that effect. So if you'd like to, without limitation of characters, express your argument to the people, because you and I both know as public figures, Twitter is not the best place to have a take. So
yeah, I definitely should have gone to Reddit. That would have been way better.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. You would have got really good feedback. It would have been perfect.
Exactly. No. Okay, yeah, I'll briefly state my side. It is a little complex, and it has even evolved since I wrote this. But I'll preface by saying, if you've seen the tweet, like, it was premeditated. Like, I was aware that was a hot take, and that's part of the reason why I wrote it. Like, I wanted you to look at that and say, huh, I strongly have a feeling about that, and I want to engage and have a conversation. My real goal is to have a conversation about the state of Rocket League and where it should be. But with that in mind, the basic argument is, I think that the fact that Rocket League's core gameplay, and what I mean by core is like the actual game itself, like going into a match, the mechanics of the car, the size of the field, whatever it's going to be, like the actual gameplay, the fact that it never evolves, I think actually hurts the game in the long run. And the reason I think that is because I think the gameplay in of itself does get repetitive. Even esports can get repetitive. Even watching the top pros can get repetitive, because ultimately the game has not changed in over 4 years, and watching the same thing over and over again can get stale. I did allude to, and this might have been a mistake, but I did allude to a game like Fortnite that has consistent and constant updates every single season that are actually pretty drastic. But I would say they've done a better job retaining their new players that they got when their game went free to play than Rocket League has done. Because my ultimate concern is the fact that players who came to play this game for free are not sticking around. It is no surprise that Rocket League's players have dropped significantly. So my platform is really just to advocate that Rocket League update and change and incorporate new features to keep players excited and engaged and give them something more to work towards.
Now, from the conversation, obviously this has evolved since the last time that, the tweet was brought up and stuff. You've been able to think about it and kind of express what your true intentions were. Obviously, we agree that, creating conversation, having dialogue is the most important thing. I think we're both on the same side that the standardization of Rocket League will hinder its growth in the future, without a doubt. And there is multiple facets to that. If you're talking about the core gameplay, if we talk about it at the high level, what dictates what is the optimal way to play the game is obviously professionals. And even in that sense, professional play is different than high elo, high MMR type games as well, because you're playing with a coordinated team, with a strategy and a play style, versus, hey, I've got to adapt and overcome with my 2 randoms. So
what do you mean? Those games go perfectly.
Oh, they're super fun, and hopefully they're in voice chat, and even still, sometimes it doesn't. But the standardization is something that is a core belief of Psyonix. Psyonix has stated that they want Rocket League to be a traditional sport. Same map, same mechanics, same cars, everything is neutral. They want the separation to be from the individual players. And I think that's where your argument comes into play as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, that if everything is same, then something itself otherwise has to be different. And your proposition is the mechanical side of things by introducing unique mechanics that will upgrade that gameplay, like we saw in Sideswipe. I think that was your mention. The purple shot, by touching a mechanic a certain way, it then allows you to shoot it differently or something to that extent. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, you're exactly right. I would say the only thing to know when we do compare Rocket League to a sport, and I wasn't the only person to acknowledge this. Actually, I learned this from one of the analysts who responded to my post as well. But sports themselves have even evolved over time, which I think people are quick to ignore. Rules, regulations, small tweaks and changes, the size of the field, the way that it's played. It may not seem like massive changes at the time, but I'm more proposing those types of small changes to keep the game healthy, to keep it, keep the quality of life, and just make it more interesting each season.
Now, the 2 major ones, as being a huge advocate for the NFL, Green Bay Packers, born and raised, that's my team. There is a controversial play about a certain wide receiver catching or not catching the ball. And that is things that I think you're alluding to. For those that don't know, what constitutes a catch in the NFL, the determination, the rules of that have changed a lot. A lot of the changes also do come in play from health regulations, stuff like that. Where they do the kickoff from, where are they receiving a punt from, where does the touchback bring them to on the field, because they want to limit the amount of injuries and stuff because it is a contact sport. We don't have those limitations, which are great. We don't have to deal with the zebras on the field determining the human element of what makes a game exciting, which there's a lot of other leagues in the NFL, the NBA, whatever, where they go to a automated camera replay that just is yes, this is right, this is wrong, which a lot of people, I think, are in agreement with because they want their team to win fairly. But at the same time, for entertainment purposes and for money, they don't. So that part is kind of unique on that aspect of things. But you are 100% correct. The NFL and many other sports have changed over years for the betterment of the entertainment side of things and to keep things interesting. It's that adapt and overcome. Now, the difficulty I have with Rocket League in particular is I am in agreement. I actually had this conversation with Cookser back in like 2016, 2017, where he also had this ideology of the map already at this point, 4 or 5 years ago, needs to become bigger. Players have already at this point gotten too good to where if I clear the ball off the back wall, it clears the entire field. And if we want it to be more similar to traditional sports, I shouldn't be able to pinch off the back wall and have it land on the other back wall. It should land somewhere on the field where you have to make a calculated decision, a dribble inside, outside, take a shot, a pass, whatever it may be. There needs to be a decision being made other than, well, it's going to hit the other back wall. So are you more so in belief that we could tweak the like standardization, like the map size, where the boost pad locations are, things like that first? Or do you think they should implement, hey, this new mechanic that people can master that will then affect everything else? Because that's the issue I have personally about the argument. Introducing like a unique mechanic will completely change the game. It'll change everything from head to toe.
That's partially true. I do see where you're coming from. So with the sake of that argument, let's let go of the map changes, though I do think those are probably the most easily changed of all the mechanics, like, or the state of the game. I feel like that is the simplest to change, but I'm not just advocating for that, though I do think less people would be mad at me if that's what I was just advocating for. But I would say, no, I do think mechanics have to change. And the reason I think that is I want to see the game evolve and develop and become more interesting to watch. So my favorite example of this, and what even got me inspired to play Rocket League, was after inadvertently they added basically a delayed flip in Rocket League. So this was way back when the game started. About 9 months after the game was released, they released a patch with the Neo Tokyo update that allowed you to save your flip after you launched off that ramp, which basically turned into new mechanics such as ceiling shots, flip resets, you name it, allowed you to keep that flip to do something mechanical afterwards. And I have never been more inspired to play the game than after that release was launched. I saw pros learning how to adapt and use that mechanic and become exciting with it and turn it into things we would have never thought of. Like, no one knew that that would become a flip reset, but now that's a standard practice in the game to learn how to use effectively. And I've never been more motivated and excited to watch content and play the game than when that release was jumped out. But that's not my only argument. I also think the fact that people ignore this one, air roll left and right was added into the game in 2017, which I think people overlook. That actually has changed the game significantly as well. It seems like a minor tweak, but that type of tweak has allowed an entirely new way to fast aerial, to turn your car in new directions that wasn't even possible. And we're still learning to this day ways to use that mechanic effectively. But I would say it's totally changed the game at the pro scene. So the types of changes I'm advocating for are not extreme. I think sideswipe mechanics are questionable. I threw it out as an example because I do think they're relatively minor, but they would turn into, I think, similar to that delayed flip, a massive change. I think the first one that I want to see is being able to side flip cancel, because right now we're able to flip cancel forward, but it feels like a quality of life update to be able to cancel your flip to the side. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, that's super easy. I even got people to agree with me on that one. But I think you forget how big an impact that change can have in the esports scene. Would you then be able to flip reset onto the ball off the wall from the side because now you can cancel it? I think there's like a million opportunities with that. That would be a small change that throughout a season would develop and become really interesting to make the esports scene extremely entertaining and inspiring again.
Now, that's a lot to unpack for some people. So let's start with the first one, obviously the Neo Tokyo update. Out of curiosity, do you know why they implemented that update?
Because when you were going off the ramp, they didn't like that it kind of ate your jump as soon as you flew off the ramp.
So from the devs that I have talked to, the reason for that, and put candidly, is because people sucked ass. Like the whole reason that happened is when Neo Tokyo came out, those ramps were a hard cut. There was not like a soft curve that allowed you to drive up slowly to get onto.
Right.
And the reason they ended up doing that with transparent goalposts and everything else was obviously quality of life, and to make sure that for the widespread audience, the pure intent behind it was to make sure that when you are driving, you are not launched into the air. You don't have the ability to recover because at that time, that was early Rocket League. We did suck. Recoveries, all that, like it was abysmal. It kind of ruined the experience for the casual players. But I have gone back since then, and probably the past year and a half, and played the OG Neo Tokyo, and it's still my favorite map by far. Even with
what about it is fun? Just curious.
it's so different. The ability to drive up like those ramps and then use those as a platform to get to a different angle, or kind of like using a sidewall, but even sooner, right? Like I don't have to remove myself to the complete side of the field to then jump off and come across. I can do it slightly a little bit closer. So you now are getting the capabilities of a challenge off the ceiling. You can now do an aerial in the middle of the field, conserve a little bit extra boost, which again showcases like how important these little changes are. Is like, yo, just because I can save 10 boosts by going off of here instead of this sidewall, I now have the capabilities to deny clears and meet things that like it's unbelievable those changes can make. So it's crazy that an update that came out was literally because people suck and we need to make it more accessible, then turned into this unintentional thing that became flip resets, flip cancels, you know, going off the ceiling, because that's what the evolution was. Flip resets were a natural evolution of, okay, our jump doesn't expand unless, you know, we are initially using it, and then it's a 2-second count. Now we can just fall off the ceiling. You saw the fake from Squishy, and then from there you then get, well, okay, surfaces can be anything. Let's reset off of cars, which that I think is going to be a little bit hard to recreate, is getting flip resets off of other cars, which has happened.
It is possible, but just rarely.
Yeah, but primarily the ball is the go-to. So the one I do, and I think a lot of people should concede on, is the second argument you make, which is the introduction of the air roll. The directional air roll, I think, is something that is taking a mechanic that already exists and making it to an extent where you have more control over your car. I think it's a great idea. I think it has elevated. You are allowed to do certain things faster with the manipulation of your car. If anybody has done any rings training, rotating in a circle does propel you faster. That's just the natural physics of the game.
Right. When
the boost is directly behind you, it allows you to change directions at a quicker pace. It is also why everybody thinks that quote-unquote freestyling is happening in the RLCS, when in reality it just makes it is faster to stop mid-revolution rather than to start revolution, stop, then hit the ball.
Exactly.
And that's been a conversation for years. Shout-outs in particular to Gimmick, who many credit the pioneering of always air rolling when he goes for a touch. The complete antithesis of Farah. Shout-outs to the Airbus. Love those both dearly. So that concept, I think, is something people should definitely concede on. I think it is an update that, although they may not see the direct effect, it is definitely a high-level nuance that as you start to appreciate the game at a very high level, it is without a doubt making an impact. And as you stated as well, Caleb, we don't know the full extent of that. You know, there is a lot of mechanics. Being able to roll and move a different, you're basically giving yourself 2 directional inputs at one time, which is really important. So that stuff, I guess you can even deem back to Cookster Twist back in the day. You know, little things like that is like the origin story of this. So I guess the biggest thing is I do like the thought process, and this is stuff that I think you would agree has to be heavily play tested first. That if they do introduce and say, hey, we're going to take and sideways dodging, you can cancel that now. You can cancel sideways. We're going to play test that. We're going to bring in a plethora of people. We're going to bring in some low-level players. We're going to bring in some high-level players, some pros, and everywhere in between. And we're going to extensively play test this. And after X amount of time, we'll see if we can implement it. Is there anything else that you can think of where it is taking a pre-existing mechanic like air rolling and expanding upon that like they did with directional air roll? Is there anything that you can think of that may be a way to go about it?
Sure. I mean, first, I think, the side flip makes the most sense, similar to air roll left and right, because it's just giving you more car control. And it already feels like it's missing from the game. The next obvious one that I think people have advocated for a long time is demo spawn choice. I think RNG in the game doesn't really make sense to begin with if we're advocating for sports. So you might as well allow people to just pick which side they want to be on. That feels like a quality of life update to me as well, but would also be interesting to see that pointed out in an RLCS game, hey, this pro chose to go to this side. Look at how that changed the game for him in this scenario, because demos are becoming maybe not overpowered, but one of the metas in high level gameplay.
I don't know if you've seen the video. I don't know if it was Waiton or somebody else that broke down the Rise respawn to get the like one of the craziest saves we've ever seen in the RLCS.
Oh yeah, I think Sunless did actually.
Was it Sunless?
But yeah, I think I did see. It was like the best save in Rocket League history or something.
It was probably Sunless. So if those haven't seen it, basically when you respawn is the only element of RNG in the game. Obviously some weird pinches and stuff can happen where it hits the ball, but that actually isn't RNG. Like that's just being unlucky. Like that's not random. It is, hey, this ball pinched to hit this perfect corner, which you didn't expect, but you could calculate that. You could recreate it if you do it perfectly. That's the beauty of Rocket League. So Rise at a point against Space Station Gaming respawned, and for those that do not know, you can angle your wheels in a way on respawn that actually gives you a brief update. It allows you to basically beat as you're falling down in the respawn to angle yourself so you can position yourself in a way to get back to the save. Rise did this actually the wrong way. He guessed wrong, but still had such a fast reaction that he was able to get back in time and make a save with the speed flip. Unbelievable stuff that most people will never appreciate because they don't understand the fundamentals of it, but it is showcasing how unperfect we still are in Rocket League, and getting rid of that randomness, the only randomness in the game in my opinion, is a big deal. I think it's something they should do. I also think for spectators and for commentators, they need to showcase if people have a flip available or not. I think they need to show so we don't have to speculate, oh, did Alpha actually never miss a flip reset? Has he always
landed? It's funny because they added that to Sideswipe in season 2 of Sideswipe that I thought was like, oh, well, duh, like that should have been there from the get-go. But it makes me think, why can't we have an indicator as well in Rocket League?
Yeah, it's something that I know for team broadcasts that I've done for casting RLCS Day 1 stuff, we have tried to find in the API the ability to display that. It is something that we wanted to make the only, like, because I do the version 1 broadcast, it's something that we've been working hard on to be the only broadcast that showcases when players have flips available. It's something that we desperately want because it is such a big mechanic in the game now. And knowing whether, as a commentator, if he did fake it, if he still had it available, or he never had it available, but the other team is just respecting that he has it, are things that we're still missing out on for entertainment purposes. But when it comes to the actual gameplay, something that we talked about and kind of put on the back burner because we were focusing on the mechanical side, let's talk about the standardization now to kind of close things out.
Well, I'll just have one quick note on that. I'll just say, I think the interesting part of that flip indicator is that Rocket League actually has that ability already built into the game. They just haven't made it available to everyone. And the reason we know this is the DeLorean, the Back to the Future car, actually displays whether you have the flip or not. So if everyone was using that, we'd all know. But they've just chosen only to make it part of that car for some reason.
It's the same thing as this custom trainer update coming out. They're like, by the way, we've had a history tab, but we just haven't shown it. It's like, you know how helpful that would have been? Like,
exactly. Yeah. So sometimes I just get confused what their end goals are. But
so standardization, maps, boost locations, how much, this and that. Boost in itself is this really crazy scenario where you're taking the total amount of boost, dividing it by a number, and then we just display it 0 to 100 when it should technically be 0 to 255. Like it's crazy. If you don't watch Halfway Dead, you should. He does rocket science, talks about boost pads. Like if you take your boost all the way down to 0 and collect 5 boost pads, it will not display as 60. It'll display as 59. I don't know if you know that.
Super weird. I have heard that before. I don't know all the science behind it.
With the way that it is, technically with boost, you have 11.8. So based upon the way it rounds, changes the way it displays. So there's certain things like that are really weird. But when it comes to boost consumption, how much, where it is, all that kind of stuff, all that is standard. Every single map is considered a standardized map. They tried to do Rocket Labs maps and non-standard maps at the very beginning of the game. The maps they introduced candidly sucked butt.
True. Yeah.
I get they were fun, but those were not the ones you should introduce into competitive.
No. Yeah, I agree. I think the basic argument I heard too is there should ultimately just be like a competitive mode and a casual mode. Like let let them be different and okay to be different. Like I think that's completely fine with different maps and all those kinds of things. But also Rocket League hasn't standardized their maps, which I think is the most interesting thing to me. Like Forbidden Temple, the way the ball reacts to the corner is actually different than on all the other maps.
That
and
is
we've only just now discovered that. I mean, how crazy is that?
not intentional. That's just the beauty that is Unreal Engine 3 coming into display. And I'm glad that I forget the freestyler that recognized it based upon like doing a training pack and having it roll.
It might have been too fast, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I forget who it was, but that is more of an issue of like how the maps are being made. It's not like they have a built template and then they build around it like they can do with Unreal Engine 5, where Unreal Engine 5 is going to do some amazing things for this game when it comes out. It really is. The creation, how fast, all that kind of stuff. Self plug. If you guys haven't checked out, Rocket League is going to, or Unreal Engine 5 is going to change gaming video I've put out. Highly recommend doing it. There's some examples. It will legitimately change gaming. It's not just clickbait, I promise you. But that kind of standardization I think is important for a base level. But I do think along the same mentality of, hey, let's experiment with dodge canceling to the left and the right, to the side. Should we also experiment with size of the map? How tall, how wide, where boosts are located, things like that. Because I think you could easily just scale it up. Take the map, extend it by 15%, and if that's enough to increase where the boost location changes, do so. Or maybe we should minimize how much boost is on the map. Maybe we should change things. I had some chaotic, evil person in my chat was like, maybe we should randomize how much boost you get. A big boost gives you anywhere from 50 to 100, and small boosts give you anywhere 1 to 12. I'm like, you're a madman. That is the worst.
I'm not an advocate for RNG.
Yeah, I'm like, you are evil. Lethmere, I look forward to you making that map. But that is like, I'm like, no, let's stay away from that. But the things that we can control. I think the map, I've always been an advocate of making the map a little bit bigger. I don't think they should increase how many people. Yeah. Like, I love the way 2v2 plays. You've got enough space to do some things. There's still passing capabilities. I think they could probably reduce how much boost is in 2v2 if they really want to make it a bit more competitive. But overall, I do like the player to space in 2v2s because it is a massive risk reward when you get over aggressive and things are easily punished.
Right.
And that like conscious decision of should I challenge, be aggressive versus, okay, I got to be the last man back, let it develop. And threes, because people have gotten so good, it doesn't feel that way. But if you made the map just a little bit bigger, maybe that would come into play. Maybe if you made the map a little bit taller, you wouldn't see some of these ceiling passes or things that you're starting to see develop. But I don't want those to go away. So I don't know the perfect answer, and I don't know if there's just an easy one-to-one scaling option out there. But I do think it is something they should experiment with. I think it's something they should definitely be playtesting.
Right. Yeah, and I think the ultimate answer, I mean, if we really want to try these things, or if we just want to give Psyonix the benefit of the doubt and say they do know about these things, but just haven't incorporated it because they think, it would affect the integrity of the game, whatever their reasons are, I still think they should just add a literal experimental casual mode that has these minor tweaks, these little things that we're talking about, and just lets you play test them and see what the results are. I mean, I don't think that would harm anything. And even if it totally stayed as an LTM, at least some of us would get to experience something new, and it would still keep things more interesting than just another, I don't know, hoops mode or something released.
I think that's the frustrating thing is these LTMs, like when they put out those Rocket Labs maps, they were fun. They were cool. The corridor one that was super long, like it was different. But why are they only around for 2 weeks?
Yeah, like Knockout was really fun, and then we just dropped it.
Like, where's it now?
That didn't make sense to me either. Like, I actually want competitive Knockout. I'm not even joking. I think that'd be super fun.
That damn grab mechanic, man.
It's broken. They have tweaks to make. So maybe that's why they rotate him in and out, is they want that play test, kind of like what we're talking about, and then say, hey, we're going to take it back, see what happened, and make changes. Maybe that's all they need to do with even just an experimental regular casual mode. Just take it out, put it back in.
The frustrations I have is it needs to be faster. I think that's the complaint a lot of us get, is there needs to be just more content in general to keep this unique, exciting. And if they are going to do limited time modes and unique game modes and maps, obviously that takes a lot of time to evolve. They're also trying to develop Unreal Engine 5, but I can't let Unreal Engine 5 being the savior for everything be the excuse. It can't be the answer to be like, they're working on Unreal Engine 5. Oh, it'll be that can't be good enough anymore. You saw what felt like last season in season 6, awesome knockout game mode, horrible delivery
Right.
on the rocket pass, the map, everything else. It seems like
Yeah.
season 7 is going to be pretty good. Season 7, it looks like was a
I'm
kick in the
hoping so.
pants, and they're
I'm
like,
already making a positive video about it, so I'm hoping
good,
so.
good. Hey, yeah, I'm with you on that one. It seems like it's going to be a step in the right direction. So I'm hoping that there is a way for them to pump out some of these limited time game modes faster, because that's what it felt like. They had Basin, the Corridor one. They had like 3 or 4 like unique Rocket Lab maps, and they had them consistently come out for like 2-3 weeks, and then a break 2-3 weeks, a break 2-3
Right.
weeks. But since they've gone through those, why haven't they redone them at all? Is it because they are updating them and making adjustments to it, or is it just
I doubt it.
they don't want it to like? Why not release Basin again? Why not, like, those should be in rotation periodically? Like, make them go through an entire season, not
Yeah.
just like, I don't know why it doesn't. To me, Rocket Labs should be a permanent option that I can see those maps on rotation. Throw them into a pool, let us play.
Sure, exactly. And beyond just like Rumble, that
Yeah.
instead of being forced to play mode that you don't want to play.
Yeah.
And I'll say one thing about the Unreal Engine 5 thing. I think a lot of the Rocket League community has this impression that Unreal Engine 5 is going to be the next free to play, and it's just going to explode the game, and we're just going to fall in love with it all over again. I don't want to sound like a pessimist, because I do agree it's going to build a lot of hype for the game and keep it exciting. And I am truly excited for Unreal Engine 5. But I also don't want us to ignore the game itself is just getting ported to a new engine. The game itself is not necessarily changing. I'm sure Psyonix has big plans, but if we don't have these conversations now, I don't think we can expect a drastic change when Unreal Engine 5 does come out. So I think these conversations are important, even with the state of Rocket League right now, and we can't just ignore the fact that, or basically kind of like you said, give Rocket League credit. Okay, they must be building Unreal Engine 5, so this update can suck. Like, I don't think that's acceptable.
I'm with you there, man. I have, my expectations are low, but my hope is very high. You know, I'm
Right,
coming in with a
right.
low bar because I don't want to be let down, which is a terrible way to live life, but that's just kind of the reality of how things have been lately. So I'm coming in with like, you know what, I'm even keeled. You know, hopefully it's awesome, and you know, that's about as far as it goes. But if it's not, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. I think, and I hope Psyonix is aware of that. I think these conversations, like you said, are extremely important. I think they're things that need to happen preemptively, so when the time does come, they have been thought about and discussed. And that's always the difficulty, is we don't know about the internal dialogue that's going on over there. Psyonix has always been very secret. They are getting better with communication, but it still can. We always want more. And seeing a roadmap, what's on the plan, does hold them accountable, which is always the difficulty. Speaking of Psyonix, early 2022, there was supposed to be an update to that Rocket League Esports website. We're halfway through the year. Exactly. So, again,
I don't know what they're doing.
you know, there was this big push of saying, hey, on game day, you're going to want to be here instead of Liquipedia. I'm still using Liquipedia every day on like multiple monitors. So I don't know what to tell you. So again, we don't forget, you know, like it'll be
exactly. Yeah, they just dropped the ball. Like, it's nothing.
Hey man, custom training is getting
funny.
updated and some other stuff. So at least some positives to think about there. But yeah, man, Caleb, I've held you for so long. I greatly appreciate you. I'm looking forward to this positive vibe you've got going towards season 7. I'll make sure to check it out. But final words are yours, man. Greatly appreciate you taking the time and expressing interest. I think it's like you said, important dialogue to have, a very important dialogue to have. And at the end of the day, I hope everybody as well in the comments down below, let us know questions for myself, Caleb, otherwise. Trying to create healthy dialogue. That's the important thing here.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for having me. I think it's really important. I obviously posted my thing on Twitter, but I think having this kind of more in-depth and lighthearted conversation about it has really opened up and gives kind of sheds light on both sides of it. So, dude, I appreciate you having me, and this has been really fun. So thank you for your time.
Hey, man, always a pleasure on my end. Again, if you guys want to check out Caleb, all of his information to his socials, his YouTube, all that kind of stuff down in the description below. But that said, that is it for the conversation. Core gameplay, custom maps, standardization changes. Who knows what's in the future for Rocket League? But that's going to do it for us here. We'll catch you next time.